I am the CEO and president of Women Impact Tech. I spent 22 years in my career at Manpower Group, a large corporation that I absolutely loved, and they gave me amazing opportunity. I started with them in our Riverport office right here in the Louisville area. And then I moved very quickly. I was working on my MBA at the time at Bellarmine. And right after I got my MBA, they hired me at their corporate office in Milwaukee. I've pretty much been a virtual employee since about 1999, 2000. It's been a long time. So way before it was hip or cool, I was virtual because I went back and forth to Milwaukee on an as-needed basis, and I managed salespeople around the country. And I did that for 22 years. And then during the pandemic, it was an extremely stressful time for us. Not in a negative way, but we were supporting Pfizer in their development and manufacturing, and then subsequent their logistics of getting out the vaccines. We supported companies like Honeywell and 3M and mask production. We did Abbott when they were creating all those at-home tests. We did pop-up locations for them. And in all those employers that were looking for contingent labor and support in staffing, they were hiring thousands of people. So the pop-up location in Illinois, for example, for Abbott, that was over 3,000 workers that we brought on just to get those home tests out the door. And that was only one client. So I ran about $1 billion organization for Manpower Group, which were our largest, most complex national and global accounts. And there was just a tremendous amount of pressure. And as I took inventory, Sandy, I thought, gosh, I'm kind of at that leave a legacy stage in my career. I have about 7 to 10 years left. I do have 2 small children. I adopted late. So my daughter is 6 and my son is getting ready to turn 5. They're 16 months apart. And the idea of post-pandemic getting back on the road, traveling every single week was really stressful for me. So I made the decision to make a major career change. I left Manpower Group. I took the summer to enjoy my kids and be a stay-home mom for the first time in my life. So I spent that summer relaxing with my kids. And this tremendous opportunity at Women Impact Tech came knocking at my door, where the gentleman that had started this business, they had been shut down for a pandemic. They ran another business and were dabbling, great entrepreneurs. That they have a couple of other businesses, and they were looking for a female leader to come in and take over this business and continue to invest in the business, but they didn't want to run it in the day-to-day operations. So I came in, built a strategy, worked with them about 3 months to figure out, could we get a viable strategy for 2022? We built it, and then I'm proud to say about 6 months into 2022, we decided, hey, yes, this has a viable business model. I will step in as operator of the business and owner of the business. We wrote an operating agreement. I took over the business then, and they continue to invest. And in year 2, we have expanded the business. So what we do is, our mission is to elevate women in technology, and we host 7 conferences around the United States, mostly in technical hubs like San Francisco, New York. We do Seattle, Boston, Chicago, Atlanta, those types of markets, Denver. And we go in and we partner with companies in those geographies, or companies hiring in those geographies, that sponsor our event and are really creating cultures for women to thrive in technology versus just survive in technology. We only populate about 24, 26% of the total tech population are female. So it's imperative that we continue to get women interested in tech, and then also help create a path for them to actually sustain and stay in the industry. Surveys say women are exiting faster than we can get them into the industry. So that's the frustrating thing. For about every one director that is elevated in tech, 2 director levels are exiting tech. So it's this perpetuating problem of getting women and diversity within tech departments and within technical companies to ensure that they mirror the markets in which they serve and that they create the profitabilities that we know companies that focus on diversity actually gain. So that's what we do. We do it through live events. This year, we've expanded our services to membership. We are creating a platform. Think of it as the virtual business resource group or affinity group for women in tech for many companies that don't have a large enough female population in tech. They can join our membership portal and platform for just-in-time information, networking, mentorship, and have a broad spectrum of female technologists around the country. And then the last pillar that we've launched this year is talent solutions. So a lot of our clients were looking for help throughout the year. It was great that we can come into a city and help them in one city, but they're asking us to support them year round in hiring female technologists and helping them, whether we're helping them hire these difficult positions for them to find women, or we just fill the top of the funnel with a lot of candidates that are diverse candidates that they're having trouble getting from their traditional partners in staffing. So they aren't finding that diverse palette of candidates in their panels. So we're ensuring at the top of the funnel, we're hosting events in their local communities or their headquarters. We're hosting events virtually to ensure that we're recruiting and bringing in the top of the funnel female technologists, as well as diverse underrepresented communities for technology as well. We're helping fill a gap where a lot of companies just are not feeling confident that they've either laid out the right mission or the right goals for their diversity initiatives for their internal hiring practices.
Okay.
So that's what we're doing.
I'm very excited to hear that. I'm a former technologist.
There you go. See, and women say they would stay if they could see an opportunity to move into executive roles where they had work-life balance, but those positions aren't readily available today where they have good mentors that they can see. There's just not a lot of them.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's
Yeah.
true. So tell me about your team and how you've built them and how it's structured.
So I've got 26 team members and they're all over the United States. So I have a team of recruiters that span from East Coast to West Coast. Arizona is my biggest hub. I think 3 of my recruiters sit in the West Coast in Arizona. I have salespeople, 2 out one's in Boston, one's in Jersey, one sits in Philly, one's in Ohio, one's in Portland, Oregon. I've got one in Minnesota and then one in Milwaukee. So we're covered coast to coast on salespeople. And then I've got operations people that are all the way from North Carolina, also through Arizona, that run operations. My head of marketing sits in Orlando, and my vice president of operations, she also sits in South Florida. So we're all over, and I'm in Southern Indiana. I'm, for the first time, an Indiana girl. I was born and raised in Kentucky, lived in Louisville for 35 years, and then just crossed the bridge very recently. We're over in Floyd's Knobs.
Being completely virtual, you don't see each other in the hallways.
We don't.
So those after meeting conversations are a little more challenging. So how do you keep your people connected?
That's a great question. We work really hard. I host 3 meetings with my staff every week. Monday, it's an all-team meeting. We all get together. Every other week, we share successes and what we're working on broadly in each of our respective roles. And then the opposite weeks, we have an OKR process, and we're pretty deep in following an OKR process for individual success and then our performance indicators, certainly for our business and how we're performing as a unit, as a team, as a business. And then on Wednesdays, I just meet with the sales team and head of marketing and sales enablement. We get together as a team. And then on Fridays, which is my favorite team meeting, we do a retro board. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a board where you reflect on how's your week gone. And it's everything that, this made me happy this week. This was kind of meh. And then this is what made me sad. It's not always about work stuff. There are some things that people will talk about on a Friday readout that are about work-related things, But it's the other things like, oh, I had my kids home all day on Wednesday, so I wasn't as productive as I would have liked to have been. It's all those kind of things. So we just remind each other that even though you're not having those water cooler conversations, we're human. So if one of your colleagues didn't respond in the timeliest fashion that you thought they should respond, just remember we're all human and we have other components of our work-life balance. The other thing that we've implemented that I think makes a huge difference is we do bonusly, which is a way to recognize team members that are acting in the values of our organization. So every day, someone on the team will get recognition from a peer member for something they've done or contributed to. From a leadership perspective, I give out over a month, I have about 300 points, which translate to dollars or awards, gifts they can give or get for themselves, or donations they can make to charities or communities. But it is a nice way that just quickly you'll see people recognize team members for things they do to contribute to their success. And then the other thing we do is we play a game on a quarterly basis. We create some type of game. And this particular quarter, we're calling it the Winter Games. We do competitions. Everybody creates their own team, their country, and imports, exports, fun, silly stuff. And then on Thursdays for 30 minutes, we all get together and we do trivia, or we built a snowman with your eyes blindfolded. This week's game is where in the world is Carmen Women of Impact? And it's one representative will show pictures of them in different parts of the world, and we'll give 3 clues for the picture so it won't be so obvious. So we get to know each other on a personal level through competition, like fun games. But you learn things about, we have one team member that is just phenomenal at trivia around animals. So she's just an animal lover. So we do that to kind of keep everybody connected and getting to know each other on a more personal level, because a lot of our meetings are business focused. And so we do try to pause once or twice a week to remember that there's a human element and there's more to us as individuals than just the work life that we see.
Are you going to be able to scale that?
I hope so. I think so. A lot of those ideas came from the founder of our initial organization at their business. I needed to say, hey, how have you done it virtually in running your business across the US? Salespeople have a different DNA, and that's what I've really focused on throughout my career. A lot different than, and fortunately or unfortunately, most of my career I was focused on more mature workers that had been in their industry for a long time. So I didn't have the generational spread of contributors that I have today in my previous career. I had a very large team and maybe had 2 generations in it. And today I actually am very fortunate. I have a couple of interns that are still in college. So very young individuals up to very mature workers. So they shared some of their best practices because they have that generational mix across their organization. And I do think we're at an advantage because my team gets together for our live events throughout the year. We have 7 of those. So 7 times a year, we can do team building. Well, we host our event, so that's a lot of work. But in the evening, after our setup day, we usually try to go do something fun, team building, axe throwing, whirly ball, bowling, something where people can really collaborate and build relationships with their colleagues.
You know, the Engage and Grow program that I give has so many elements that you've talked about. One of them is the rewards and recognition.
Yeah.
And it trains people to look for the good.
Yes.
Instead of, oh, this was late or you did this wrong. And I always get the eye roll when I introduce it.
It's imperative. Our Bonusly program, where we reward and recognize colleagues for their focus on our core values, I wouldn't take anything for that part of our program because it's silent. It is just a written form of recognition, but it pops up. You get it in Slack, right? So it's there. Right. You see it through this. Bonusly is the app that we use for it. But it's so nice to see colleagues complimenting each other and recognizing when someone in the team lives a value. right? Because I think so many times we create core values in a business, but we don't find a methodology for us to revisit those core values. And so they get lost in translation. And this ensures with every recognition of a peer group and every time you give someone on your team that recognition, you also call out which of the core values did they live in providing this contribution to your success or contribution to our team that you're recognizing. As a leader, that's probably one of the best things about my day is when I see somebody recognize that someone on the team did something that either contributed to their success, our team's success, or just simply they lived the value and they saw it perform out as a colleague. I'm probably most rewarded by that than anything else we do. I don't like the trivia. I do it because it appeals to my Gen Zers. That age group really likes that kind of competition and camaraderie. So I put a smile on and we do it. But as a leader, I don't get out of that what I know they get from it. But the bonusly for me and that type of recognition, it's important. I feel as a leader, it keeps me motivated throughout the day when things might not be going as well as you would like. You're reminded that while we are here to generate revenue and build an organization, we're working with humans. And if you can contribute to those humans' lives in a way that's impactful, not just as, work-life balance, but one life, their whole person, I think there's nothing more rewarding than that.
It sounds like you have a wonderful program in place for that. That's
do.
exciting. That warms my heart as an
Yes,
employee engagement advisor. It's one of the things I preach. If you really want to change behavior, you reinforce the positive.
Yeah, exactly. And, we used to do that at my other organization on a quarterly basis through quarterly reviews, probably the thing that we still do it here. But when you have a program like I described previously, the quarterly just is like a meh. You recognize an employee of the month or employee of the quarter, salesperson of the quarter. But it seems like that doesn't have the same impact. It doesn't have the same value to the staff as getting it every day from their peer group. That to me, and then from a leadership perspective, I probably should tell them more frequently how much that means to me. But just seeing them do that to one another, you can tell that's more meaningful to them than me doing a quarterly award and recognizing somebody on the team in a quarterly presentation. They're grateful, but it's a different kind of grateful, if that makes sense.
It does, because it's those little actions and you're like, wow, somebody noticed.
Yeah.
So that's very cool. Tell me about a challenge you've had as you've grown and what you've learned from it.
The biggest challenges during fourth quarter, we started to see a lot of tech companies tightening their belts. We hired a pretty large team in sales, knowing and preparing for the expansion of our business in 2023. But the impact of the downturn in fourth quarter was pretty significant for a small business. So I had to do a couple layoffs, and that was really challenging. I did find that when I was in corporate America, layoff was a layoff. We kind of expected them every fourth quarter, and people didn't get overly emotional about them, to be honest. We just became numb to them. Certainly, if it was a friend, you had some feelings, but for the most part, I don't know, that sounds callous to say, but you just expected them, right? You knew that was the course of how business operated.
Yeah.
In a small startup organization, to have to do layoffs because we do so many of the things that I talked about, it was like losing family. There was a grieving process that was very different than anything I ever experienced in the corporate environment. And that was good and bad. It was good because then you saw how tight you had built your team. It was bad in it took a few minutes for people to kind of regroup and get their morale back together. And that was challenging. And I'm kind of faced in that predicament again in first quarter where things aren't moving quite as well as we would like. And I brought in, out of necessity, an operational leader because I was trying to manage 90% of the staff myself. And it's just too much. Like I can't expand the business, build the brand, do Fox News interview in the morning and then afternoons do all these one-on-ones and keep everybody really at the growth pace they needed. So I hired an operational leader, which requires me to make some additional trim in staff. And I think all of those, knowing that now I'm going to have that another round of impact, it's challenging. It's just hard.
Yeah, it is hard, especially when you care about your team.
Yes. I think that's the good thing about being a startup and a small organization is that you can operate very close and intimate as a group, but it's also those business decisions become more impactful in people's lives because they've become intertwined and they feel it differently. And because I have a lot of young staff that are either interns or first, second job in their career, they haven't experienced those types of layoffs. Certainly, they're seeing it in the market, they're seeing it in the press, they are very familiar because of our industry's focus, but it doesn't make it easier.
No, it doesn't. And I've owned 2 businesses of my own, both tech-based. And the employee aspect of it was probably the biggest challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Most people, at one point I was a human resources director, and I think most people fire themselves. You're the person that has to tell them it's still.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's really terrible. And, I even think one of the young ladies that we've identified that we're working through a plan with, I think she knows, like, that's the hardest thing. She can feel it. She knows she's not making a significant impact. And even on OKR meetings this past Monday, she said, well, we're at 22 individual members and hopefully we'll get 3 more this week and I'll reach my OKR goal for that particular topic. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, sweetie, couldn't you just say, I'm going to reach out to 15 people this week and see if I can't hit my goal of 3 more members? But she's not wired that way. And so even the words coming out her mouth, she hears it's not where it needs to be. And your heart breaks for her because, like, you don't have to wish for it. You can actually impact it.
Yeah.
Oh, tough.
Yeah, when you hear the word wish, it's a sign. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and you've shared some great information with us.
We work really hard towards employee engagement, even as a small organization. I think it's imperative. We are not yet into Net Promoter Score land. I am hoping to get there. It is a goal of ours, but we are doing the engagement process to get us used to that muscle for sure.
Congratulations on your being a business owner.
Thank you. It's not for the faint of heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, dear.